Stopping Foreclosure video series lesson 1, the basics and doing your diligence. The following is an exchange of knowledge in this area. I have no degree, but am just someone who spent some time studying and am trying to make a difference. I am merely exercising my right to free speech. By watching this video, you acknowledge and agree to this notice below. Notice: the foreclosure diligence lesson, hereafter lesson, is a regurgitation of knowledge and general and specific knowledge, ideas and concepts between the providers and the recipients. The content is not meant as legal advice. The use or attempted use of any idea or procedure discussed in the lesson, as applied to the recipient's own personal transactions, cases, or controversies, or applied to other cases, may or may not result in a favorable outcome or the same outcome as discussed in the lesson. Each transaction, case, or controversy may be different as a result of unique actions or unique statements made by the parties therein. Each different act or statement in any transaction affects or may affect whether any procedure or idea discussed in the lesson is relevant to your transaction or that the outcome thereof will be as depicted in the lesson. The discussion of ideas or procedures in the lesson is not exhaustive of the subject being discussed in any one lesson. Many ideas and concepts that can affect the outcome of any legal or commercial procedure are not discussed in any one lesson, and the fact that you may not be aware of these issues may have an adverse effect on the outcome of your procedure. It is the responsibility of each party to understand his own transactions and to apply the appropriate and complete concepts necessary for procedural and substantive remedy thereto. So, if you would like to learn about defending against foreclosures, just knowledge in the area, I'm in the belief that everybody in high school should learn about mortgages and foreclosures and credit cards and interest rates and student loans and all these things, and banking and how the banking system works. People should learn about all these things, when they're in junior high school or high school. And most people just go throughout life and they get advice of, quote, professionals, attorneys, accountants, whatever, when they want to buy a house. And that, in my opinion, is kind of not the greatest. People should, whether you have a foreclosure issue or you're watching this because you know someone that has a foreclosure or a mortgage issue or is, quote, their house is, quote, underwater, which means their mortgage is, the amount that they owe to the bank is a lot larger than the value of the house. Whether you're behind on your mortgage and can't afford to make payments to the bank anymore, or whether you're facing a foreclosure or an eviction process, it would behoove you to learn this before you have a problem. And it is my belief that these things should be taught in educational systems, but of course we know the educational systems are owned and controlled by the powers that be, and so if you choose to homeschool your children, hopefully by the time they reach 15 or 16 or whatnot, they should be getting some sort of lesson like this, which the public school system kind of seems to skip over. So thankfully we have YouTube, and thankfully, people don't need to pay an arm and a leg to watch videos on YouTube. All you really need is to have access to the internet and a computer. So this is going to be the first of several lessons. If you'd like the complete lesson series, do not hesitate to contact us at understandcontractlawngwin.com. I will give you a link to the website. There should be a link to the website below, and there's a private email subscription list on there that's no cost, and there is a phone number on the website. First thing you want to do is find out if you are in a judicial or non-judicial county. This is going to determine whether or not the bank, if you fall behind on your mortgage payments, how quickly and if or not they're going to need to initiate a lawsuit and go through a lot of red tape and a lot of public policy procedures in order to commence the foreclosure determination and the subsequent attempt to evict the people possessing the property, which could be the borrowers on the loan, the homeowners, the people renting the property, or people squatting in it. So, and that's not to say if you're leasing or renting a house from someone, you might want to look up and use the information in this video to find out, to see if there are any legal proceedings going on against your landlord, because it's possible, especially with the economy since 2008, there's a lot of landlords that are not paying their mortgage, and you might be living in this place and having all your stuff here and have to be told on a 30 days notice that you have to leave the premises. You should look into and find out if your landlord is paying the mortgage payment, and if there are any legal proceedings that could kick you out of the house. So the first thing that you want, or the dwelling or the building or whatever. So the first thing that you want to do is find out if you're in a judicial or non-judicial state or county. Call up the county that you live in. So if you're living at a particular county like Kings County, New York, just call up the county or call up New York City, or do a Google search and find out if you're in a judicial or non-judicial county. Mostly the states are either going to be judicial for the most part or non-judicial for the most part, but if you look up the state, this is one of my favorite sites that I use to look this up. I had done a Google search for judicial versus non-judicial state, and yeah, judicial state versus non-judicial state, and one of the first results that comes up, you'll see a lot of information on here from like law firms and things like that, because they're trying to get your business. So just keep in mind you might be going onto someone's website that might be offering foreclosure defense as a law firm or as a private company. This is the one that I look at quite often. I do not know if it's completely updated, and I always tell the students that I'm speaking with that contact me to do their own diligence, and that's the purpose of this video. Now hopefully people can just watch this video and we won't need to walk everybody through this. So let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. By the way, if you have a PC and you're wondering how I zoomed in to do that, all I did was I held Control and plus sign. Control and the plus sign. So yeah, so you see someone's putting an ad on this site, free foreclosure email alerts. So I'm not endorsing this site or the accuracy of any information on this site or the advertisements on it. However, this will give you kind of a basic idea in case you forget. You can look up Alabama. Can be judicial or non-judicial. The process period is 49 to 74 days. The sale publication is 21 days. The redemption period is 365 days. And it's a trustee sale state. So it's either going to be a trustee sale, which means that it's a deed of trust, not a mortgage necessarily. It is a mortgage, but it's basically, they're usually going to be called a deed of trust, and the trustee is going to sell the property usually at a private venue or on the courthouse steps or something like that, without any court action. So The ones that say trustee are non-judicial states for the most part, and again, this is just a basic general overview to teach you some of these things as far as what I know or what I think that I know. And don't believe anything that I say is accurate. Do your own diligence. But the ones that say court are the court. So as you can see here, Connecticut is entirely a judicial state, as well as Delaware, and District of Columbia is entirely a non-judicial state, and has a relatively low process period and sale publication date. So what that means is that if your property is in the District of Columbia and you fall behind on your mortgage, you're not going to be waiting forever. They're going to be selling your property and trying to boot you out of there a lot quicker. So this is a nice little chart to print out or to check out, and it may not be 100% accurate. But if you have a property in a particular county, call the county and ask what these figures are: process period, sale publication, redemption period. Ask if it would be a judicial or non-judicial process. Sheriff is mostly like again, if these are checked off, it could be judicial or non-judicial. Okay. But the ones that are on here that are trustee are non-judicial, and the ones that are court are judicial. Okay, so for the sale to happen, they go through a court or a not court process. Okay, so the judicial process is when, again, there's a significant amount of, like, quote, red tape. There's court filing costs that the attorneys for the bank will proceed with. Or the attorneys for the owner of the property will proceed with in order to evict or, first off, just to foreclose. And they will need to get a judgment. Now, there's a few types of judgments. There's a default judgment, otherwise known as a consent judgment, which is by your lack of response, you've consented or defaulted and thus agreed to that judgment, which then gives the authority to remove you from the premises and sell the house, or vice versa. A summary judgment is similar. With a default judgment, there does not typically need to be any, actually I don't think at all there needs to be any appearances in the court by either party. It's just paperwork being filed into the clerk. And there will be like a magistrate or a judge or whatnot that signs off on it. Summary judgment is one party made an appearance, the other party maybe didn't appear, or did appear and didn't really have any answer or any response that had any substantive or formal or procedural remedy, and so the court just plowed over the other person's, quote, defense or their arguments or their position because it wasn't in alignment with the court rules in the process, which is the reason why attorneys are trained to know about the court process in the area that they practice in. So I'm not foo-fooing getting the help of attorneys who can be very helpful because they're very familiar usually with all the court rules and the procedures, and they also might be very familiar with the kinds of judges and how the judges typically rule in different kinds of foreclosures and foreclosure defenses and so forth. So if you're doing this by yourself, pro se, or if you're doing this by yourself in another capacity without an attorney, you're going to need to very quickly do enough diligence and understanding of the court procedures. You're kind of taking a gamble on not knowing anything about this judge, but you can also look up in the court records different rulings that the judge made before in similar cases. So just something to be aware of. Unless, of course, you feel like you've got a surefire way, or working with someone that would make all those issues moot. And I certainly believe there are a lot of processes and angles to go at this from that do make a lot of things that I just discussed moot. But I'm trying to cover this from all angles, all different kinds of remedies, all kinds of different processes. This is just a general, basic lesson. If you don't know what process period, sale, publication, redemption period are, I'm going to, instead of just tell you what they are, Google them to show you how easy it is. You don't need anybody to really teach you this stuff. This information is all available in books, in libraries, in court libraries, search engines, process period. And this is how a lot of people learn this stuff. Let's see. If you were to type in this is kind of a lesson in just teaching you how to use a search engine. What is a process period? Foreclosure. Okay, the foreclosure process, how stuff works. Foreclosure process differs by state, but we take a look at the general steps that are taken. If you're faced with foreclosure, it's important that you research your state laws and practices. See, they're saying the same thing that I just said. Foreclosure proceedings can begin after a single missed payment, but it isn't very likely. Most banks and lenders have a grace period for late payments, usually with a fee added on. It typically takes being a full 30 days late for the alarm bells to go off. After the second missed payment, you'll be getting some phone calls. Many lenders will only accept both late payments to bring the loan current. They also may refuse any partial payments. Once you fall 3 months behind, things get serious. This is typically when most lenders will begin the foreclosure process in one of two ways: judicial state, which requires the process to go to court system, or power of sale, which can be carried out entirely by the mortgage holder. All states allow judicial sale, which only 29 allow power of sale. If your state allows power of sale, that's like the non-judicial, the loan papers will usually have a clause that says this method will be used. Power of sale is typically faster than the judicial route. Let's look at both methods. Judicial sale. The mortgage lender will file suit with the court system. You'll receive a letter from the court demanding payment. Typically, you'll receive 30 days to respond with payment to avoid foreclosure. At the end of the payment period, a judgment will be entered and the lender can request sale of the property by auction. The auction is carried out by the sheriff's office, usually several months after the judgment. Once the property is sold, you're served with an eviction notice by the sheriff's office and you must vacate your former home immediately. Power of sale. The mortgage lender will serve you with papers demanding payment. After an established waiting period, a deed of trust is drawn up that temporarily conveys the property to a trustee. The trustee will sell the house at public auction for the lender. Many times these foreclosures are subject to judicial review to make sure everything was carried out legally. There's usually a requirement for the lender to post a public notice of sale for the auction. Both types of foreclosure require that any other involved parties be notified of the proceedings. For instance, if the homeowner took out another loan against the house with a third party, that lender must be contacted and its loan amount must be paid from the auction's proceeds. If the third party lender isn't paid, it can apply the mortgage to the new property owner. Many times the lender will actually buy the property back and attempt to sell it through the real estate market at a later date. There can also be deficiency judgments made against the borrower if the sale of the property doesn't satisfy the amount of the loan. The entire difference between the two can be required, although some states only require that difference between the fair value of the property and the loan amount to be paid. There's one more type of foreclosure that's almost completely obsolete called strict foreclosure. In these cases, once judgment is made on the lawsuit, the property is automatically assumed by the mortgage holder. Only Connecticut and Vermont still allow this practice. Now, just because they allow it doesn't mean that living in those states is going to happen. They allow it. In this section, we'll give you some tips to help avoid foreclosure. I wonder if this page continues on the next page. How to avoid foreclosure, etc., etc., etc. Okay, there's a lot of things here: forbearance, mortgage modification, Federal Housing Authority. A lot of these things are mainstream processes. Do your research, read about them, learn about it. You know, if you're very new to this, you can learn a lot for free on YouTube without ever paying $1 to go to law school or any school. There's a lot of practical, basic knowledge that'll get you to a certain level of understanding of this stuff just by using a search engine. So anyways, I think we're done with this for now. We still never got the answer. What is a process period? What is a redemption period? Yeah. What is a redemption period in foreclosure? And then what is the redemption? What's the time frame? Redemption's period. This is even on a government website. Redemption is a period after your home has already been sold at a foreclosure sale when you can still reclaim your home. You will need to pay the outstanding mortgage balance and all costs incurred during the foreclosure process. Many states have some type of redemption period. The redemption period and availability is often determined by whether the foreclosure is judicial or non-judicial, and timelines and procedures can vary greatly from state to state. You can find specific information about the redemption period of your state, if applicable, by reading the state laws on foreclosure. Let's see. Okay, see, this is a pretty cool website. Again, I'm not endorsing the information that's on here or saying that it's all accurate, but let's click on Illinois. Judicial foreclosure available, yes. Non-judicial foreclosure available, no. Quick facts. So therefore, everywhere in Illinois, they're going to have to go through a judicial process. Primary security instrument, mortgage, instead of, deed of trust. Timeline, typically 210 days. So that means typically, and it's different based on county by county, based on, and seasonally, based on the economy, what time of the year, what's going on with the banking system, what's going on with what different kinds of banks, who the lender is. You can't never really tell. So I wouldn't go by this, but this is just like probably like a mean, or a mean number somewhere averaging. Could be much less, could be much more, depending on the unique situation, the lender, and the court system. If they're backlogged, so on and so forth. Who are the attorneys working for the bank? Are they backlogged? Did they have an issue in their company, and the head of the company just quit? Did their employees get laid off? I mean, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of cases that they got to throw through the court system, and that's why there is. That's one of the reasons why there's a lot of a delay. Right of redemption. No. So now you know right now that if you get to the point of the the sale, if you get to the point of the foreclosure sale, there's no right to redemption in Illinois. Interesting. Interesting. You might want to know that. Deficiency judgments allowed. Yes. And then you go back. You're saying, oh, what was a deficiency judgment? I forgot. Go back. Read what that was. You can learn a lot on your own about this. Lenders in Illinois have a number of options available to them to foreclose on a mortgage in default. Judicial foreclosure. Notice of the lender's intent to foreclose must be given to the borrower and any other person entitled by Illinois statutes to receive notice at least 30 days prior to the court's judgment of foreclosure. The court finds in favor of the lender and issues a notice of sale. The sale will be conducted in the terms and conditions specified in the notice of sale, provided they meet the minimum standards provided by Illinois statutes. The sheriff or any judge within the county where the property is located may conduct the sale. The borrower has no rights of redemption after the foreclosure sale. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. If the borrower has defaulted on the mortgage and the lender agrees, the borrower may simply give the deed to the lender, and his interest in the property securing the deed will be terminated. If the lender agrees and accepts the deed, they may not seek to obtain deficiency judgment against the borrower at any time afterwards. So you may want to this is basically just giving up before they get a foreclosure. If the borrower, usually the homeowner, has defaulted on the mortgage and the lender agrees, the borrower may simply give the deed to the lender, and his interest in the property securing the deed would be terminated. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Consent foreclosure. In this type of foreclosure, the court enters a judgment satisfying the mortgage by giving absolute title to the property secured by the mortgage to the lender. The borrower has no rights of redemption after this type of foreclosure judgment has been rendered, and the lender may not file for a deficiency judgment. Lenders may also foreclose on mortgage in default by using the common law strict foreclosure method, but Illinois law does not permit non-judicial power of sale foreclosures. Interesting that non-judicial strict foreclosures, according to common law, once you're in default, you can exercise certain rights without going to court. Interesting. Non-judicial execution and enforcement. Alrighty. Let's go to New York. Judicial foreclosure available? Yes. Non-judicial foreclosure available? Yes. I think that out in the Hamptons, in eastern Long Island, is where they do a lot of non-judicial foreclosures. They have a lot of deed of trusts out there. Most of the rest of the state is mortgage. Timeline is typically 120 days. Right of redemption, no. Deficiency judgments allowed, yes. And then you can learn a little bit more about this. Typically, the foreclosure sale is advertised for 4 to 6 weeks. The sale is made public auction to the highest bidder. Anyone may bid, including the lender, etc., etc. So, you may want to read the state that you're in, or if you have a friend or someone that you're concerned about, so that they know how much time they really have to, Okay, done with this. Now, the next thing I want to come down to is, call the county clerk's office. How do you get the county clerk's information? Just Google whatever county you're in, clerk website, and look for the appropriate phone number that they would have that department to answer your questions. Now, the county clerk cannot give you legal advice, but they can definitely assist you. So when I Googled, let's just do, I think I Googled just Cook County